October 28th, 1951, Castlewood, South Dakota. In a little farmhouse, Augusta Heemeyer just gave birth to a new baby boy. His name was Marvin Heemeyer. Now, I couldn't find much information about Marvin Heemeyer's childhood, but the earliest thing I could find about him was that in 1971 he joined the U.S. Air Force, and then later in 1974 he got moved to the Lowry Air Force Base in Colorado. And then after that, in 1989, after he was discharged, he moved to Grand Lake, Colorado, which is a small town outside of Granby, Colorado, about 16 miles apart. And funny little thing I found while looking at the Grand Lake Wikipedia page. If you scroll down a bit and look at the notable residents, you can see the town's founder, Marvin Heemeyer, and Tim Allen. Now I'm just going to give some background details to help you understand who Marvin Heemeyer was a little better. So, he was a Christian. He was a member of Christian Reformed Church, which was a Protestant sect of Christianity. Very heavy supporter of legalizing gambling in Granby. He even got into an argument with journalist Patrick Bower over it. He never married. He never had any kids. He was described by his friends and family and those close to him as very friendly, extremely kind, a really stand-up guy. But from people who weren't his friends, and he was more hostile and threatening to him, and he held on to grudges. This man, if you wronged him, he would not forget. He would hold on to that forever. He really liked to snowmobile too. That's another important little part about it. It's not that important, but he just loved to snowmobile. I remember on the Wikipedia page it says at one point he helped form a rescue team to rescue one of his friends who got trapped in a little avalanche. So later in 1992, Marvin Heemeyer bought 2 acres of land in Granby, Colorado for $42,000. And on it, he built his nice little muffler shop. And this land will become a very important piece of the puzzle for this story. It's a very integral part. Now, it's a few years later, 1997. The Dochefs, they're going to be an important family in this. Cody and Susan, and also Joe Dochef. So they were building a concrete plant in Granby. And they wanted Heemeyer's land to, build their concrete plant on. And at first, Heemeyer asked for $250,000 for his land. They gathered up the funds, went to him, but he raised his price to $375,000. They were able to scrounge up enough money again, and then they went to him, and he raised the price again to around $1 million for his land, for 2 acres. Now, of course, they didn't go through with the deal. It was way too much money. But they ended up buying all the property nearby Heemeyer's land to build their concrete plant. Heemeyer was very heavily against this concrete plant going in. He started a campaign, concerning about the environment, the construction sounds and whatnot. But the Dochefs were able to, they had solutions for the problems that he raised. And Heemeyer's whole campaign kind of lost traction. And in November 2000, he filed a lawsuit to try and, stop the project. And by January 9th, 2001, Heemeyer had lost his allies, and, it was already, the concrete plant was going to go up. That's what I'm trying to get across. Now, Heemeyer, I've seen other videos covering this topic before, and one of the points they always bring up is that the concrete plant would have blocked access to his muffler shop. Fun fact, I found out. So the judge says that it never would have done that. And that's just from the Wikipedia page. If that isn't good for you, I'd like to introduce you to Patrick Bower. He wrote the Killdozer book, which, that means he's already done a lot of research. But I'd also like to say, at the time, he was a reporter for Sky High News, which there also could be a little important later on, so maybe remember that. He was a first-hand witness to the Killdozer, and he was there for the court hearings. And it never would have blocked his muffler shop. There was nothing there. The concrete plant wouldn't have blocked his muffler shop. Now, also around this time, Marvin Heemeyer was having a lot of problems with his water and sewage lines, which broke town violation because for his sewage, he just had, from the previous property owners, there was a concrete mixer, roller, whatever, that was just buried in the ground that was being used as a septic tank. And he was having a lot of trouble with the city with that. It would be very expensive to get the sewer system installed and stuff. And people were like, just put in a septic tank and stuff. He was avidly against all that. So in June 2001, Joe Dochev, he made an offer to Heemeyer where if Heemeyer, he dropped the lawsuit, Joe would allow him to hook up to the concrete plant's sewage line. Heemeyer just hung up. He hung up the phone on Joe because they were calling. Heemeyer eventually started to just pump his sewage into an irrigation ditch behind his property, and at one point he was caught trying to hook up his sewer to a neighbor's sewer line, and he got a $2,500 fine for it and other violations and stuff. Now at this point, Heemeyer was starting to get mad. He was getting tired of, the city constantly getting on to him about the sewer and the concrete plant, and he had a bunch of recording tapes that he made. He thought, and in it he stated that he thought some people were laughing at him as he left the courthouse. Look at this guy, and he got mad. Alrighty, so the lawsuit against concrete plant in town was dismissed in April 2002. And Heemeyer was mad about it, he was mad that he lost his money, stuff. So he went to California. He was in California. He bought a Komatsu bulldozer in an auction for $16,000, and he had it shipped back to Granby in July 2002. And he kept it outside of his muffler shop with a for sale sign on it, trying to sell it off, but nobody really showed interest. Now, in October 2003, he sold his 2 acres that he had bought for $400,000 to the Trash Co. And he took out a lease so that he could keep working in a building he had previous that used to be his, because he had to finish up some work. Now, the new owners of the property connected it to the water and sewer, so that was finally solved. And Heemeyer, with his little shed, I think, or little garage or whatever that he had leased, he changed the locks on it, and not many people saw him at this time. He just kind of stayed in that garage working all day, and he was not seen a lot around town. So for the next year and a half inside that garage, Marvin Heemeyer worked on his Komatsu D355A bulldozer. He started to add some things onto it, which I'll get into in a second. I don't want to spoil the fun part just yet. But he started to add some stuff onto it to assist him in attacking those who wronged him, in his mind, who he thinks wronged him. So, I think it's about time to tell y'all about the Killdozer. This is the fun part of the video. Now, the Killdozer was a Komatsu D355A bulldozer. Pretty nice, basic bulldozer, But, the modifications Marvin Heemeyer made to it made it special. It made it very special. It had, so you just have the bulldozer, right? He put a 1/2-inch thick steel plate covering the entire cabin and some of the tracks, like you can see it in the photos, and the big back part claw thing, whatever, I don't know what it is. And then he spaced out another half-inch steel plate, and in between the two steel plates, he poured concrete to build to build armor for it. Now, this armor that Marvin Heemeyer had made was bulletproof and explosive proof. Like, later on in the assault, you'll hear the cops tried to shoot at it. It literally could not go through. But a con of the armor was that it was like so heavy that it slowed down the bulldozer quite a bit. Marvin Heemeyer added some guns to it through little ports he had, so you could, shoot outside of it. And the guns that he added was a Barrett M82 50 cal, the big sniper rifle, an FNC 5.56, but I've also seen some sources say that it was a 308, and then he had a 223 Ruger Mini. And then inside of the thing, the guns that he had on him was a 357 revolver and a Kel-Tec P11, which was 9mm. And also inside the cabin, Marvin Heemeyer had 2 monitors inside of it and 7 cameras outside on the Killdozer broadcast into those monitors so he could see outside, because he had no windows in this thing. Like, he could not see out except for those cameras. And they were each covered by 3-inch thick bulletproof glass. 3 inches. Like, that is... it's quite a lot of bulletproof glass. And he had little compressed air nozzles on them to keep them clean, to make sure they didn't get dirty or anything. Now, after weeks and weeks of work, it was June 4th, 2004. And around 2:15 p.m., Marvin Heemeyer sealed himself inside of the Killdozer, and he did not intend to leave it. Now, as Marvin Heemeyer started his assault on Granby, Colorado, the first thing he had to do was get it out of the little garage he'd been building it in for the last year and a half. But it was too big to go through the door, so he had to go through the side of his garage, and I should have a picture of it up to show, the damage he did. But his first target was Mountain Park Concrete, because, it was right there, and he just hated it, and he bust through one of the walls. Now, as it bust through the wall, many people started to, panic and stuff, and Cody Duchev, he got into a front-end loader to try and stop the Killdozer by, ramming it, but it didn't work, and Heemeyer started to, fire rounds at it, and eventually a deputy and a state trooper, came to the scene to see what was happening, and they started getting fired upon. And Cody thought that it was remote controlled, and he was like, "It's Marvin Heemeyer. He's got to be remote controlling it." And, even more state troopers eventually showed up, and Heemeyer started to leave, and he charged at the state troopers, who were able to dodge it just out of the way right before they got hit by it. So they got extremely lucky. Now, after the concrete plant, he went down onto West Agate Avenue, and he hit Mountain Parks Electric. And after that, he hit Maple Street Builder, and at this point, I'm pretty sure that cops started to do what is referred to as reverse 911 call, which is basically they called up people saying, "Hey, stay in your houses. There's this mad guy running around in a bulldozer, And then after Maple Street Builder, it went left onto Mesa Street, and then took a right to East Jasper, and that's where the City Hall and police station were, where, Heemeyer also did damage to, and it said, also the library was there too, and it said, at the time, the library was having a, reading hour for kids, so, nobody got hurt in it, the kids were safe and stuff, but he also destroyed a lot of, government documents and important things, and damaged, the police station, the city hall. They had to rebuild the city hall, and then after this, he continued down the street, and he turned right onto First Street, where he hit the Liberty Savings Bank and a fire hydrant, which you can see in photos. It's leaking and there's water everywhere. And then after that, he went back onto Eastgate Avenue where he hit Sky High News, and there you can see like videos of it of him pushing cars from the parking lot onto the street. During this whole thing, the cops are like following it, firing rounds in it. It's just doing nothing to the Killdozer. Like this thing was unstoppable. Like explosives didn't work on it. They got armor-piercing rounds, I'm pretty sure, at some point, and tried to shoot through the armor, but they just couldn't. It was too strong. And then he did a left and a right, and he hit the Thompson's house because one of the former mayors, I'm pretty sure it was the mayor that he first started having problems with, and he had passed away, and his widow, Thelma Thompson, 82 at the time, was just still in her house, and she was just there. I don't know why, but whenever I'm talking about this part, I think of that one scene from Spider-Man. I know this is terrible, but I think of that scene from Spider-Man when Green Goblin's burst through Aunt May's wall. Oh my gosh, I'm so terrible for that. Thelma's husband died 3 years previously, and his grudge still just didn't go. He still didn't let go. And then after that, he went north and he hit the Thompson Sons excavation. And then he turned south again and went down to East Agate CT, where he went to the Independent Gas Company. And he tries to shoot at the propane tanks with his 50 caliber, the Barrett. And he fails. He was trying to explode them, and do a lot more damage. And eventually he goes, then as he's going, he turns back around and he starts heading back up to get to East Agate Street. And while he's driving there at a small intersection, there's a scraper that's there to meet him, and he just completely pushes the scraper out of the way like it's nothing. And now he's back onto East Agate Street, and there he hits the copycat office, and then he hits the front of the Gamble's General Store, and then he starts to go down the side of it, and then the scraper comes in and it blocks him, so he can't, reverse back out, so he keeps going forward. And at this point, as Marvin is going down the side of this, he reaches a basement which he didn't know the building had, and the dozer gets stuck in that basement, so he can't move or anything. So he's basically stuck there, and then cops start to, his engine stalled, cops start to get on top of it, and at that point, as the police were trying to find a way in, they heard a gunshot ring out, and they later find out that Marvin Heemeyer killed himself using the .350 and revolver that he had brought on board. No civilians or cops were killed. The only casualty of it was Marvin Heemeyer himself. Now, the aftermath of this situation was a lot of damage. The assault had lasted 90 minutes, and he destroyed 13 buildings, he destroyed a lot of cars, he destroyed traffic lights, trees, light poles, fire hydrants, and it cost $7 million, or around $7 million, to rebuild and help, to just rebuild everything. They had to build an entirely new city hall, and you can see it, they had to cover up. They had to move it over a bit. And when they were searching his house, they had found plans for the Killdozer on his PC, and a list of 107 people who he thought had wronged him, which is just 107. This is in a town of around 2,000-ish people. And also, later, Heemeyer, before he had said, he recorded audio tapes, and he had sent them to his brother before he had started the assault. And his brother later turned them into the FBI so they could continue to investigate and whatnot. And the tapes, it's 2.5 hours, and you can find some of them online. I wish I had more time to do this project, because I would have listened to them, but I've skimmed through, and he does not seem like the most stable man from it. The Killdozer's demise was that it was broken up, and the scrap of it was sent to multiple different junkyards to prevent souvenir keeping, and, maybe somebody trying to rebuild it. Oh yeah, they did make a movie at one point called Tread, which is like a documentary about him, and all the stuff let up. I'm sure it's probably a whole lot better than this. Anyway, that's the fun story about the Killdozer. Really, really fun and happy story. Just a good old time of a man wanting to rebel against his government and all that. I'm gonna give my opinion on him. I think he's crazy. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that this man, there's something mentally wrong with him. But that's not why people support him. That's not why people, like, Marvin Heemeyer, what a great man. They don't like him because he threatened the lives of many people. I mean, I hope not, at least. But I think they like him because he resembles, the little guy standing up to the big bad government, like fighting for his freedoms or whatever. I think that's why people like him. I mean, he thought that he had been wrong many times, and many people can relate to that, being wronged by their governments and those meant to protect them. But I think he might have gone a little too far. But some people think he didn't, and I think that's why people gravitate towards him. He was just an underdog. That's what some people think. He was standing up against the corrupt government, which many can relate to, of being hurt and screwed over by, higher powers, the government, big businesses. Well, anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. This is my first kind of, this is a very different departure of a video from what I usually do. It's more like document style. I mean, this is going on the second channel, but I'll leave all my sources down in the description if, and also if I got something wrong or you think I did, you can tell me and I'll try and correct it. But thanks for watching.